This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so let me start. In the last session, what we covered is we talked about EC2 instance and what are the different types of EC2 instance available and different pricing models where we can use them. And also at the end, I covered on the AWS Management Console how we can spin up one EC2 instance. So where we have selected a T2 micro EC2 instance. We have selected it from AWS Management Console. From the launch configuration, we have selected different options, and then we started it, and then we connected through a SSH port, and then we have installed a HTTP server, and there we have developed a sample HTML, and then we associated our security groups to it, and then we were able to access it. So in this session, what I will mostly talk about is I'm not sure how many of you attended that last session, but in this session, what I'm going to talk about is I'll be doing the similar thing, but instead of instead of the manually creating the EC2 instance and installing the web server, I will automate the EC2 instance and installation of the web server and deployment. So let me take that first. So this is how we start the EC2 instance. So whenever you go to that your AWS Management Console, you will be landed in your respective screen, and where you have to confirm in your region, your default region. So depending on the location you are in, you will be assigned with a particular default region. So you confirm that. Then for creating the EC2 instance, you click on services, and then under compute, you see EC2 instance option. So you can click on that. Then you can click on the launch configuration, launch instance. From there, you will be asked for different options. First of all, you will be selecting, since you want to do it at a free tier only, I recommend you to check this box where free tier only, so that it will display all the AMIs that are free tier, applicable for free tier. So here I'll be picking up this Amazon Linux AMI. So here on the free tier account, what we create, T2 Micro is freely available, where you can use up to 750 hours. You can use for free for 12 months. So in our lab, we will be using this free tier account. So this is what mostly we covered in the last time also, but this time I will be explaining and putting more details about each screen, so that you can also try this lab. Here you can define any number of instances, but here I'm setting only one, and this is the network related settings you have to select for your EC2 instance. VPC is nothing but whenever you create one account in Amazon, so by default you will be assigned with one EC2 instance. So by default you will be assigned with a VPC. So for now you can keep that default VPC. So basically you're launching your EC2 instance under the default VPC that is provided by the Amazon itself. And subnet also, we are leaving it as it is, because I will cover this VPC and subnet details in the VPC section we will be having in the later part of this course. Then placement groups. Placement groups is something, but say when you have a cluster of servers, sometimes your application requires all of them to be placed in a same location, so that the network latency between those servers or very minimal. So that is when you have to select that placement group. Basically, you will be creating a placement group and saying that all my servers created under this placement group should be located in the same availability zone, so that any network latency related delays will be minimized. But for now, we are not adding this EC2 instance into any placement group. IAM role, basically, this EC2 instance has to have the access to any other AWS resources. You have to specify here. But for now, I do not want to access any AWS resources from this EC2 instance, so I'm not assigning any role to this particular EC2 instance. And rest of the settings, I'm leaving it as it is. Tenancy is nothing but you will be given the hardware as a shared hardware. So other AWS users also will be using that hardware. So this is your root partition. Like any server we create, it needs to have a root partition. So here we are selecting our root partition. This is a EBS volume where we are selecting it as general purpose SSD, and the size we are keeping it as 8 GB for now. So tagging is important. Tagging is basically used for identifying the AWS resources, so that in the AWS management console, you can identify the AWS. So get me all EC2 instances with this tag or something like that. We can select all the AWS resources. So this is very useful, particularly when you are multiple departments, multiple teams, multiple development teams. They are using same account. In that case, we can segregate those AWS resources used by different departments and teams using the tagging. So tagging is very important to control the cost, billing, or if you want to take a bulk action on a set of resources, you can select those AWS resources using the tagging. So tagging is very important and recommended to use whenever you create any resources in the AWS, be it EC2 instance or a bucket or any other type of AWS resources. Using tagging is always recommended. So next is the security group. Security group is nothing but you can think it as a firewall, which means your EC2 instance, once it is created up and running, what all the ports to be opened for that server. So right now we are asking to open port SSH and HTTP, because we will be running a web server and showing an HTML there. I am giving the security group as Hari security group. So this is what we did earlier, right? But what we have not done in the last session is, once we have created the instance, EC2 instance, we have installed Apache HTTPD manually, and we have updated, and then we created HTML file manually. Then we have started the web service. But today, what we are going to do is we are automating that installation. For that, in the configure instance page, where we have selected the number of instances and the VPC, there is also one option called advanced details, where you can provide user data. So this is the place where you can supply a list of shell script commands, which will be executed whenever that EC2 instance is launched. So in this, what I will do is whatever the manual commands which I entered manually in the last session, I will be providing those commands in this box so that I need not to log into that particular EC2 server manually and install Apache web server and install the HTML file there. So let me take that particular set of commands which I used it, and let me copy that. So if you look at the script, it starts with the hash bang bin bash. It tells where the command interpreter is exist, and then I am elevating it to a root user. Then I am updating the software packages to see if there are any security patches available. Then we are installing HTTPD service. Then I'm going to cd var HTML. There I'm creating a file called index.html. Then I am starting the web server, and then I'm making sure that service is on. So this is what which means I have automated my application installation. Similarly, you can install your database server, or you can install your caching server like a Redis or a MongoDB, or any installation you can automate with this kind of leveraging this launch configuration. So I'm now launching the EC2 instance. Let me check if I have my key pair here. So key pair is something which will allow you to connect to the EC2 instance. So basically, when your EC2 instance is launched, you have to say for some reason you want to administer that particular EC2 instance. You have to connect to that particular EC2 instance using SSH port. For that, you need to have a key pair to be generated from here. Once it is generated using that key pair, you will be able to connect to that particular EC2 instance. So I'm generating a new key pair, that is Hari KP2. So now my instance is launching. I will wait for the instance to be launched. So this is what I have given in the automation script. So what we will be seeing is, once the EC2 instance is started and executed, it will execute all the setup commands, which means once the EC2 instance is up and running, I will be able to get that public IP address and launch it so that I can see this kind of message. That means my web server is running. That means I have automated my application installation. Yeah, it is running, but let me give some more time. So my instance is initializing, and I have my public IP address so that I can access this from here. Yeah, so you can see that, right? So it's automated, the instance is started, and then the script got executed. It installed web server and then created a HTML file called index.html, and the content of the HTML is hello world from AWS Tech Group. Then it started the web server, and I'm able to access that web server. So which means we have automated our application installation. So this is very important and useful feature where you can automate your installation. But if your application installation is too complex, then we have to use some other tools called CloudFormation, and which are available. Maybe we will cover in the later part. But yeah, you can, if your application installation is too complex, we can leverage those things. But if your EC2 server is having any dedicated application installation, you can automate using this. Any questions so far?
Hi, Hari. This is Ratish.
Yeah.
Hari, you said you've been selected SSH and HTTP, right? So can we also select HTTPS? It's a secure network, right? Network protocol, right? So can we have that HTTPS connection?
Yes, you can have HTTPS as well, and you can start deploying your application under 43, and then you will be able to access it. So let me show you that.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In order to enable HTTPS, right, you need to have some SSH key to be enabled, and it associated with the passphrase, right? So how will be getting that in this case?
Yeah, so that is that depends on the application Apache server, right? In the Apache server or web server, in Tomcat, basically it will have that ports opened. You have to change the server configuration to close the 8080 port and open 443 port. That kind of configurations you have to perform. So basically, you have to make sure your application is listening to 443, that is HTTPS port. And on the AWS side, what only you have to do is you have to go to your security groups, which we created. So
okay.
So we have your security groups, right? Let me open that on the dashboard summary. Yeah, here we can add that port here in the add rule. You see HTTPS is here.
Yeah.
So you can add this rule on the AWS side. On the application side, it is actually differs from server to server. So Tomcat, there is a server.xml where you will be opening that port. But in the Apache, there will be another configuration you have to make, that 443 port. So like that, first thing is you have to make sure your application listening to that port, and then you come to the security group and open that particular port here.
Oh, yeah, I got it, Hari. Like one more question, so where we are going to give this, a passphrase and the location of that particular SSH or TSL link in AWS?
For connecting, you're saying?
Yep. Yeah, yes, you're right, Hari.
So connecting, again, it's a server. Right? It's a EC2 instance where you will be configuring, like I mentioned. In the Tomcat, usually have a path defined to it where you will be specifying. I mean, you will be copying a certificate in a particular location on the EC2 instance server, and then in your Tomcat or your application web server configuration, you will be referencing that particular path. But on the client side, whether you will be getting the certificate to access it, and you will be installing on the client browser that client certificate. But on the server certificate, it is same as the normal standard server, how you will be placing the certificate and having that reference in your application server. I mean, AWS has nothing to do with that, because in this case, right, you are hosting the application in your server. In the EC2 context, it is only providing you the virtual box to you, right?
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So same thing. How you place it, you can generate the certificate. Say if you have a domain registered, you will have that domain configured to your EC2 instance, and that certificate you will be placing on a particular path, and that path you will be referencing in your application file.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Hari. Yeah.
Right. Any more questions on the auto configuration script, which we did it now? Okay. So let me, this is how we automate the EC2 instance, and you can do it with for any instance type. So right now we have picked up P2, but you can do it for your application, any type of application, any type of instance, so that you can save a lot of time, and also you will eliminate all the human mistakes while installing the software. And I will cover two more concepts called user data and metadata now. So basically, whatever the script we have provided, that is called user data, which you can see on the, when you log into the EC2 instance, you can have a look at the user data. And similarly, metadata is something what you are seeing in the screen here. So I have selected the EC2 instance, and you can see a lot of properties about my EC2 instance. You can see my instance ID. There is an ID generated for it, and you can see the security groups. And on here, we can also see the public address, public IP address, and there will also a private IP address assigned to it. This is all called metadata. Metadata is nothing but information about the EC2 instance. This also we can actually access programmatically from the EC2 instance, which I will show you. But yeah, whenever you launch any EC2 instance, you can see the details about the EC2 instance here. And also you can check the status, and you can set alarms, but it is going to cost money for it, so I'm not setting up, but you can set alarms. And also the, like I mentioned, CloudWatch is already there. CloudWatch is already enabled for, by default it is enabled. It will collect for every 5 minutes, but if you enable it for detailed monitoring, it is going to cost money. But you can check whatever the default cloud watching features we have. We can check the CPU utilization, discrete, everything, network throughput. All this information can be looked at it. This is all about your EC2 instance running, right? So this also you can have, and you can also set alarms regarding your EC2 instance. You can set an alarm like inform me whenever my CPU utilization going to say 80% or 85%. You can set those alarms, but it is going to cost, so you have to be very careful before setting these alarms or enabling detailed monitoring. Detailed monitoring costs you money, so I am sticking to the basic monitoring here. So let me show you the user data and metadata which I'm talking about. So that will allow you to see some details about it, and I will tell you when it is useful to have that kind of access. Let me connect to my EC2 instance. So there is a secure SSH application available. We can use it for connecting to my EC2 instance because it is a Windows server. Okay, so I have to, from this keypad, I go to a command prompt. Basically, if you are a Windows user, you have to regenerate a public key from that PEM file, so that we will be able to connect it through this particular application. But if you are a Mac user, you can directly connect through a terminal using the PEM file. Okay. So I go to download directory where I have downloaded my PEM file. Let me, 1 minute. So let me copy this
Hello, Hari. Hello, Hari. Are you there?
Hi, yeah, I am there. Sorry, I was talking in mute. Okay, thanks
Yeah.
for
So
calling.
yeah. Yeah.
Good. All right. So yeah, what I did is I just connected to my SSH port, and then I have navigated to a URL called 169.254.169.254, where I get the user data. And if you look at the user data, this is same thing what we have provided in the launch configuration. So this is useful in cases where to troubleshoot your launch configuration is not working. Let's say you have trying to auto install as a database server which is not installing, but your EC2 instance is launching. So in that case, what you can do is you can exactly connect to that particular EC2 instance like this and get the user data to verify the script is correct. And then from here, you can also take that commands and execute it to troubleshoot, to double confirm whether there is any access problem or internet problem like that. So that's why this command is very important, particularly when you're using that automation script. Okay. Any questions here? All right. So let me show you. There is another metadata which I showed you that in the on the details part, right? Metadata, and you have to say slash. So you can see a lot of parameters available for the metadata. So what I can see is metadata, then I will get a public IP4 address, which is here, right? So you can get details about all the parameters which are shown here. So I'm going to get public IPv4. So as you can see, it is displaying my public IP address 182.1.2 and 134. Similarly, you can get details about all the metadata information about this particular EC2 instance. So this is also useful. Say sometimes when you want to, the use case would be because when EC2 instance is launched, you don't know the IP address of that particular EC2 instance until it is launched, right? If particularly if you are not using elastic IP address. So in that case, maybe what we can do is once EC2 instance is launched, you can provide the EC2 instance details in a S3 bucket, and then that S3 bucket will have another trigger. A Lambda function can be executed once this EC2 instance writes some details on the S3 bucket, so that the Lambda function can access this particular EC2 instance. So you can automate a lot of things. For that, you need to have this metadata information useful. So you can automate these kind of details within the user data script itself. I mean, whenever the EC2 instance is launched, write the public IP address of this particular EC2 instance to a S3 bucket, and from there you can link some other Lambda functions to do other application specific tasks. But yeah, all you need to remember is this particular URL and how you can access different details about that particular EC2 instance. Any more questions on this metadata?
Hari, since metadata has all the information, right, of the project, maybe the AWS configuration, right? Is it accessible for the public users or only for accessible for the admin?
So this is all depends on how your security group is. Like you see your security group here. Where is my security group? So yeah, so this is about the security group where you create the rules to your question. Here you can restrict that connection to a particular specific IP address so that not everybody can connect to your server, EC2 server through SSH port. And also the key pair what I have generated, that person has to have this key pair. Without that, they will not be able to connect to the EC2 instance at first place. So if at all we need to restrict that access, here is the place where we have to specify only allow me to my IP address only. So here you see this anywhere and my IP only, right? If I select my
Yeah,
IP, only my server will be able to connect to this server. Nobody else in the world can connect to this particular EC2 instance. So you have to stick here. You can specify your connectors from here. That
yeah.
answers your question.
Yes, Hari. Thanks, Hari. Because since metadata is some sort of, secured data of the entire AWS server, right? So everyone accessing that metadata is not that good. So I thought to ask this. Yeah, I got it clarified. Thanks, Hari.
Yeah, sure. So this is about this, and what we covered is we covered how we can automate our application installation within the EC2 launch configuration itself, and also I covered how we can troubleshoot it in case your application is not installed. So we can connect to SSH and we can have a look at the user data and we can try running those commands in the EC2 instance to troubleshoot your application is working or not. So that is two things. And one more thing is what I'm going to cover is how we can access other AWS resources from the EC2 instance. So this is where the IAM topics we covered in the session 2 will come into picture. So let me run a command first. Let me use AWS commands. I try to access AWS S3 bucket. What it is saying is this EC2 instance is not able to access the other S3 resources because there are no credentials configured. What I will go to my AWS console and I create a user who can access S3 bucket. So let me go to IAM and I create a user here. So here you will see this user needs programmatic access or management console access. So in this case, I select this user requires programmatic access. I say my S3 user. So here it says what are the permissions I can provide. What I will be doing is I will say S3 access or I will give admin access so that he can access anything he wants. Again, the tagging is important. So when we create the user, there will be a CSV file given to you. So that CSV file is important when we try to access the S3 bucket. So now what I will do is I will do a AWS configure here. Like the error says, unable to locate credentials. You can configure credentials by running AWS configure. So I'll be running AWS configure here. So here it is asking about the access key ID. So access key ID is nothing but the user, whenever I create the user, it will give me a access key ID and a private access ID. So that I will be using here. Let me open that in a. So feel free to ask any questions you have here if I am going speed or anything like that. So what I'm doing is I'm opening my credentials. So it is asking me to copy the access key. That is what I'm doing now. I copied my access key, and then it is asking secret access key. That is also I have what is provided by the CSV file. Then it is asking me what is my default region. So I will be selecting my default region would be Northern Virginia, that is US East. Format is nothing. So now I have configured my user who can programmatically access other AWS resources. So now if I try to access my, okay, so here it says my region which I provided is not correct, but let me check what I need to provide. So basically, whatever we see here may not be the same. We have to get that particular key. Yeah. So this is the one I should be using it. So let me configure again. All right. So now you see that I am able to execute my command, which means from this EC2 instance, I am able to access other AWS resources. That is, I am trying to access S3 bucket. Similarly, from this user, since this user is admin user, from this EC2 instance, I will be able to launch another EC2 instance, or I can create a security group, or I can do all the functionality which I was able to do it from the AWS Management Console. So, any questions here? The way I created it, or let me create a bucket so that you understand what I'm. Another record invalid bucket. Yeah, basically they don't want capital letters. Yeah, so I could create a bucket here. I can do again listing. I see my new bucket is available here. I can also copy the content which is in the where. So I can copy my content also into this bucket. AWS S3. Yeah, so the file name is index.html. I copied it. So let me go to my management console S3. Here I see my bucket listed here. And when I go to my bucket, I see index.html and I can open that. I see that my content. So basically what it's saying is I will be able to do a lot of things from EC2 instance itself by creating the user and configuring that user, and then from there, if that user has permission to do create or provision AWS resources, we can do that. That is what I have showed now. But having said that, this is not the recommended way to do the accessing the AWS resources, because once these user credentials are leaked, anybody can, from any EC2 instance, they will be able to log in and they will be able to manage the resources. So that's the reason the correct method of doing the programmatically controlling or provisioning the AWS resources is using the roles. So that I will maybe in the next session I will try to do that. But for now, you can remember programmatically this is how we can access the other AWS resources from EC2 instance. Any questions? This is how this is what I'm planning to cover in this session. But maybe in the next session, what I will cover is why it is not recommended to use the username and password, rather use IAM roles to do the programmatic access. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much for your thing, and I will publish the next session details where we will cover some more things about EC2 and roles. Then we also talk about the EBS and S3 and other topics related to EC2. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Hari. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, hi Hari.
Hi. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hari, Ganesh here. I just joined in middle of the class. Can you please share the recording?
Sure, I will share
Hello.
the recording.
Okay. Okay, Hari. Thank you. Have a
Thank you.
nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye.